Hello, everyone. Royce here, and I want to thank you all for joining me on my YouTube channel, Royce in the House, where we now have 271 videos for you to enjoy at any time of the day or night that you would like to. Okay, so we'll move on to the show now. Tonight, we're going to be talking about why the Beatles stopped performing in 1966. And it's a pretty interesting story. I think we're all going to have fun with it. And here comes Johnny L.
Hi, Johnny.
How you
How you
doing?
doing?
How you doing,
Good evening.
homeboy? How you doing,
How you doing?
homeboy? Well, let me just first of all say hi to my co-hosts. Okay, we have next to me is Michael Nolan, the Bottom Line, fantastic YouTube channel, fastest growing I've ever seen. Below him is Paulina Angel Plus, and she is one of the most knowledgeable people I've met yet
Yes, she is.
about so many great bands, including the Beatles. Maybe in particularly the Beatles. And here is my good friend Johnny L. How you doing, Johnny? And Johnny is super knowledgeable. Now, Johnny, do you have your
Yes.
own YouTube channel?
I don't do anything with it. I'm not really interested in
Okay.
getting into that kind
Okay.
of stuff.
I didn't know. I thought I'd ask so I could give you a
Yeah.
nice shout out if you were,
Yeah.
Okay,
But,
well, good.
But you can catch Johnny on Rachel's Ghost.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Johnny's there a lot. And I just want to say to the
Correct.
chat that it's hard for me to interact with the chat while I'm doing my opening monologue, but we'll catch up later. So anyway, why did the Beatles stop performing live? Okay, the Beatles made their name as a live band. Their residencies in places like Hamburg, Germany, Liverpool, England, earned them a devoted local fan base before they even came close to obtaining a recording contract or a record contract. When George Martin auditioned them at Abbey Road in July of '62, he was unimpressed with their limited musicianship, but was won over by their energy and charisma. These were the qualities that had thrilled the live audiences. Martin sensed they would compensate for their rudimentary technique. I thought that was kind of a funny opening statement. I really hadn't heard anything quite like that in the past. Okay, 4 years later, the Beatles had unprecedented mastery of the recording studio, but their stage work, the keystone of their initial appeal, had markedly declined. Put simply, the bigger they got, the worse they sounded live. I know I'm going to hear about this later, okay? But the Beatles never formally gave up touring. They simply played the last contracted concert of their '66 world tour in San Francisco and did not arrange any new dates. There was no public announcement. They never announced to the world, we're done. They just didn't pursue any more live concerts or live venues. They did, of course, actually later return to the stage for one celebrated impromptu swan song, the rooftop concert at Apple headquarters in Savile Row. But in their final 4 years as the band, the prospect of the Beatles going on tour became increasingly remote. Now, why did this happen? How did we get to this point? Okay, there were three key reasons why they stopped playing live. I'll read all three of them to you, then we'll get into each one individually. Okay, number one, poor sound quality. Number two, exhaustion. And number three, their personal security. All three came to a head during their chaotic 1966 world tour. So we'll start with not World Series, World Tour, okay? So we'll start with number one, poor sound quality. Big stadium, small speakers, okay? The Beatles' first tour in America in 1964 consisted of 2 television appearances and 2 concerts, one in Washington, one in New York. Their return for a full tour in August created an unprecedented demand for concert tickets like the world had never seen before. To meet this demand, local promoters arranged the biggest venues available in most cities, the auditoriums physically capable of accommodating tens of thousands of fans were sports stadiums. And now we'll get into the downside of that. Unfortunately, this created major sound problems as amplification technology was not yet ready to fill these vast spaces. In many cases, the distorted sound that came through the stadium's PA systems was a sonic freaking mess. It was also incapable of competing with the incessant screaming of the young fans. It's the Beatles, man. It's the Beatles. I remember seeing them on TV playing, and the girls in the front rows and several rows were actually bawling alligator tears. On stages, the Beatles were reliant on their own puny amplifiers. They could not hear each other play. Ringo Starr could only keep the beat by watching the gyrating of his fellow band members. John Lennon later described how this adversely affected their musicianship. Paul McCartney said, "We couldn't hear ourselves when we were live as there was so much screaming going on." Okay, so that was number one, the sound quality. Number two, exhaustion. By 1966, the Beatles had endured nearly 3 years of relentless Beatlemania. Excitement over their initial success had soured as they faced night after night after night of screaming, "I want to hold your hand," over the screams of their teenage fans. Okay, so amidst all this adulation, the Beatles became increasingly self-conscious about their sloppy playing. They were embarrassed by their famous performance on the Ed Sullivan Show, for example, and knew that America had only seen a pale shadow of the live band that had thrilled audience at the Star Club and the Cavern and places like that. Of course, the girls who attended the Beatles concerts were not there to appreciate the subtleties of musicianship. Okay, whatever the band played was more than good enough for them. That means there was little incentive for the Beatles to go back and put the work in the necessary work in to improve. Nor did it help that Lennon especially hated rehearsing. When Paul later suggested, regular practice sessions to prepare for Magical Mystery Tour, Lennon responded with, "We're grown men. We don't need no freaking practice. We're grown men." Okay, so last but not least was the security concerns about touring. Okay, the Beatles came to the U.S. just 4 months after the Kennedy assassination. From the outset, they were uneasy about threats to their safety, and the bigger than Jesus controversy made touring in the U.S. increasingly tense. Live concerts were potentially dangerous as security was often chaotic. You gotta love that. A particular unpleasant experience in the Philippines heightened the sense of vulnerability. On June 30th, 1966, the Beatles would play their first of 5 live shows at Tokyo, Japan's Nippon Budokan. Budokan, it's Budokan, but for all of you non-martial artists and non-sushi eaters, it's Budokan, okay? The band had, unbeknownst to them, received death threats against the group that had taken place. There were even protests taking place as they were arriving. Protesters from right-wing groups lined the streets saying the Beatles were insects that needed to be crushed. When Japan, the reason why the Japanese were so upset, this was in a post-World War II era where the country had been destroyed. It was trying to reestablish its cultural identity, and many people were reportedly against the Western influence that the pop brand would bring with them. Okay, I can certainly understand that. It also didn't help that the band would be performing at the Budokan, a martial arts stadium. They said the Budokan is a sacred place for martial arts and is located very close to sacred spots, the Yakasini Shrine, as well as the Imperial Palace. They thought, do we really want a big rock concert there? The concert was an affront to their sense of tradition. They asked, why does Japan's future have to be Western? Can Japan have a future that is Japanese? Okay, so the whole time the Beatles had, the management had kept from the Beatles that there were death threats against them while they were in Japan. So they had no idea. So John, I think it was John and Paul, or Paul and George, I might be mixing it up, both snuck out of their rooms to go do some things in Japan. Both got caught, ushered back to their rooms, and that was the end of that. Okay, so John Lennon eventually apologized for his Jesus comment. I didn't really mean it that way, he said. The news conference held at the Ashdoor Tower Hotel in Chicago's Gold Coast. He said, he explained that, although he wasn't a practicing Christian, he wasn't anti-Christian and he wasn't anti-religion. So there you have it. In August of 1966, the Beatles played their last live concert, last time they went on tour. So that's my little opening monologue here. And Michael, what have you got to say for yourself, brother?
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here. I had let Royce know earlier in the day I might not be able to get here right away, but I was bound and determined to try and show up sometime tonight.
Yeah, no,
But,
I'm really happy to see you.
I was going to say, those three key reasons kind of cover it all, but there are divisions within each reason too.
I'm sure.
When you're talking about exhaustion, Royce, and you and I touched on this a couple of streams ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
But
Yes,
take a look
we
at
did.
this, folks. I hope I don't scam this too fast for you. I don't know if any of you are going to see this. Let's see if I
No, all
lower.
I see is like,
Let's see.
Yeah.
There a little bit. Okay. Now this is a list. This is starting in 1961. Let me get the glare off there.
okay.
All right. See this, folks? This is 1961's. All right. This is way before you and I ever heard of them. Look at these gigs. Look at this. Look how fast that's going. Look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. My God. All right. That speaks tons.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Just by itself. All right.
Absolutely.
Because you can't just count the Beatles' exhaustion, even in 1963 and the hardcore 1960.
Right.
And
No, I agree.
list,
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
And that list, sorry about that, but that list, that list is only from 1961. Now, when you talk about their time in Germany, they about killed themselves
Oh, Hamburg. Yeah.
at the Cavern Club, right?
Well,
and then
yeah.
when they got back to England, building up this, and everybody thought they were a German band, right? And
Right.
that set. And then when they finally met Brian and he started pushing them well before they did any recordings to these theaters. I mean, we talked about how I've got a book that talks about all of that, but that would drag us down with just doing that was too much, right?
Right.
There's no band alive right now that can match that damned itinerary.
Oh no.
That same period of time. Nobody
Absolutely.
alive ever did it before. So yes, they were exhausted. But they weren't just exhausted because, oh gee, we had a tough couple of years, and they were tough couple of years.
Yeah.
But then think about this, Royce. I was thinking about this in prep for tonight's video. 1964 is when most of us here in America discovered the Beatles.
Yeah. Right.
All right. Think back to your childhood, Royce. Think about what America was. Sundays, most businesses closed down.
Right.
And those that did open closed by 5 o'clock. Most Americans went to church. All right. We had a whole day where our entire country kind of shut down. And it was the American norm. All right. But the Beatles had to accomplish a week's work in that while they were over here with limited transportation. All right. And limited transportation modes. That New York to Washington gig you were talking about, they took a freaking train, which gets us on to, do you remember the video on that trip? Yeah. There were more reporters on that train than there were Beatles and entourage, and their group.
Right,
okay,
right.
They were surrounded. No group since, not even Led Zeppelin, has been followed by a mass from the media 24/7. Doing a week's work in 6 days. No wonder they wrote the song 8 days a week. They knew that. They knew that. And then to even dream to go to Australia, which was a long ass flight to get over there. That cost them many gigs as far as time,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
they were the hardest working band on the planet. And then they got, there at the end,
Right,
you can
right.
only imagine how bad things got. All right.
Right,
I'll shut
right.
up for now. Anyway.
Just a couple of shout outs. Hi, Dan and Angela, James, Groovy Lisa, my good friend Groovy Lisa. Go sign up to her channel, please. Groovy Lisa. I watched her for a while today.
Hi, Angela.
Always fun and entertaining.
Lisa.
Hi, Angela. Great to see you here. My good friend Caitlin Stoddard, Caitlin's Magical Corner, is also here. And go check
the
Caitlin
Big
out.
C.
The Big C, man, her show just keeps blowing up, and
I've
James
missed
Watson.
the last couple.
I know it's not always. Royce is happier than Lawrence Welk, almost, anyways.
Hipper.
Okay, so anyway, Gary Spring is here, and I would probably have to scroll way up, but I'll keep my eye out for anybody I haven't mentioned yet. So anyway, thank you guys all, and okay, Paulina, what do you want to comment on from what we've heard so far?
Yeah, so just to piggyback to what Michael said, it's like, they did like a lot of touring since 61, 62, all the way to 66. And plus, you have to also factor in the things that they were doing during that time as well. It's like, they had to do like a BBC show, they had to do some type of television show down the street, they had to do some type of photo sessions for stuff. They made a couple of movies, and then they had around that time. They also had to make sure that they were back at EMI Studios to make like the next big hit,
Right.
record. So it was a thing where like these guys, they possibly slept only about like 4 or 5 hours a night.
I can see that.
And
I can see that.
So that they could wake up the next day and do it all over again, to
do it all
go
over
to like
again.
another
Right.
interview or go to this
Right.
country or all that kind of stuff. And so like, it doesn't surprise me that, George Harrison was the one that said in 66, he asked Brian Epstein, like, is this going to be like an annual thing? Is this touring thing going to be something that we're going to do all the time? And so he was like exhausted. And I think like the last person to hold out was Paul McCartney. And I think at the end, he was like, you know what? Yeah, we need to stop touring. So, and it was a conscious decision that they made, that they wanted to stop touring.
Oh yeah.
They didn't want to make any kind of thing. And so
big announcement over it. Yeah.
On that last day of August 29th, they convened at Candlestick Park. And if you guys want to know what was like the last songs that they performed, it goes the following. They did Rock and Roll Music, She's a Woman, If I Needed Someone, Day Tripper, Babies in Black, I Feel Fine, Yesterday, I Want to Be Your Man, Nowhere Man, Paperback Writer, and then their final song live to a big performance, big audience, was Long Tall Sally. And so I saw, and also going back to like a lot of things you were saying, like, the band, the Beatles were such a big band, and their music was just like getting so big. It's like, look at these albums that they're just putting out. And I'm gonna show people stuff that damn.
Oh my god!
On boxes, like they had to go from Please Me to with the Beatles. They made the Hard Day's Night album, Beatles for Sale. They did Help, broke ground with Rubber Soul, and then with
Revolver.
Revolver, and like their music was getting so big that like you just couldn't perform those songs in a small performance hall. You needed something bigger, and sadly, the technology was not there at the time to do a stadium concert. And even when Vox was trying to come up with 100-watt amps, even the 100-watt amp wasn't working. They weren't loud enough, and I think they had
right.
But it was because of the Beatles that we saw, like like businesses like Vox or Marshall, or Fender start to all get together and figure out how could we design equipment that could handle the live audience, and
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
stadium don't have to rely on their transistor systems that, as Ringo said in 8 Days a Week. Now we got Willy Wonka going on second base.
That's great.
So
Late,
it was because of the Beatles that a lot of this stuff, all the touring equipment that we have today, is because it was inspired by
yeah.
all the trials
Well,
and tribulations they
yeah.
had to go through.
Well,
You know,
absolutely.
Paulina, you brought out that they were getting 4 hours of sleep. Guess what else they were cramming in when they were awake?
I'll let you say it.
3 to 4. No, well, that too.
Three to four girls a night. Is that
No, 3 to 4 hours of John and Paul dedicating daily, sitting on each other's bed, facing each other, writing some of the greatest music we had ever heard. Amazing, man. Just amazing.
No, absolutely.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, and one more thing. The variety shows that she mentioned. Yeah. You know, we don't have those now.
No,
Every time a group showed up on a variety show, that little segment became the video. It was like pre-MTV, but it served the same general purpose. So these were exhausting events to show up for and to set up for. And the Beatles did more of them than anybody else in America and in England.
No, there's no two ways about it, Michael. But I want to say to everybody, right before Michael started talking, you were listening to Paulina Angel Plus. You need to go to Paulina's channel. You saw how knowledgeable she is. She knows everything. She's not reading from a script. She's got it all in her head. Check her out. You're gonna love her show. You're gonna absolutely love Paulina's show.
I also want to say this too, that also if you look at the touring years as told during the anthology thing, not on 8 Days a Week, if you look at all those years, it's like there's like so much that went into. And for the past 2 days, I've been looking at the director's cut of the Beatles anthology and looking at the stuff that didn't make the final cut. All these performances that was on there that was cut out. I was like, wow, they must have had to do like a Sophie's Choice, because they're like so many more performances that they just had to cut out just to make a 1 hour and 10 minute segment. And so that really showed like how much there was out there, how much performances were done and recorded. It was like, my God, how where these guys had time to rest, you know?
For those of you who do not have this, beg, borrow, and steal this, because it's got that bonus material and all of that. All right.
These are the albums.
Yes.
What is that called?
This is the anthology. This is all episodes, including that which was on the cutting room floor and other bonus things.
Gotcha.
This is
that would be great.
If you had to watch this, folks, and you'll have a pretty as he sees himself in the camera, you'll have a pretty good idea of the Beatles' history. This, I mean, it's surface, but it's surface kind of really getting into the grout and everything, right? This is a wonderful series, all right? And they're probably going for a ton now. I remember complaining, this cost me $129 at the time because, well, you know, it was boutique shopping.
Right. Michael, are they still commercially available?
I don't know. I don't know. I should have looked that up before coming out, but I wasn't even expecting to share this. So, but if they're not out now, you know, get on the internet and grab yourself one.
Check your
this is wonderful.
Amazon, check eBay. You'll find one that's still in shrink.
Right. So Johnny, how you been?
Not bad. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm good.
I think Johnny's been very patient.
You're a big Beatles fan, aren't you?
Yes. I have this this one that I got from the flea market 40 years ago. It's laminated on wood type thing.
Okay. Okay.
And anyways, I was gonna what Michael was saying. He touched on everything. Because kind of like because I guess you don't you got to remember that when you're doing a gig and all that, it's not like they were doing their gig and then okay, we'll take a few days off and relax and stuff. Their gig, once they played that night for like an hour or whatever the length of time was, they had to go to another show right away. Right, that's that same night or whatever, right away to play that other venue. So it was like continuously, right? So you kind of wonder. It's understandable that maybe they got under each other's skin as well, right?
Oh, sure.
And I watched for the first time. Actually, I never knew that it was out there, but I watched that Get Back with the Beatles, and boy, was it eye opener to watch them playing together and mixing creating lyrics, creating songs and stuff, but also kind of getting under each other's skin as well, which caused George to walk out. And and it seemed it seemed like they couldn't get away, they couldn't. What's that? What I was going to say? Well, like one had an idea, but the other one had a better idea, and they didn't. And what kind of got me under my skin, and I know some people might say, well, it's not a big deal, but Yoko Ono was always there, which I think would that kind of makes a lot of stress as well, like for her to be there continuously every time they had this these sessions and stuff for practice and all that. She was always there continuously, right? And that kind of bothered me a bit. Because it's like, then eventually, of course, Paul McCartney brought in Linda, right, and all that. I guess figuring, well, if Yoko's going to be here all the time, Linda's going to be here as well, kind of thing.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But that really kind of annoyed me watching her being there continuously. That would kind of piss off some of the other bandmates. I would imagine.
I could imagine.
All I can say, Johnny, is you better be glad you didn't watch the original Let It Be, because she looks a lot more a bitch in that cut than she's come off in this new cut. She actually looks a whole. And I am not a Yoko fan.
No, neither am I.
So sorry, if you guys are. I know she has a lot of fans.
You both could have fooled me.
Well, I think she's a great conceptual artist, but a lot of her art she doesn't bring to fruition. And on top of that, she's full of BS.
And then on this Get Back, when she started with this her solo, it's like, how cringe was that? It's like my ears were just popping up. My dog was like, what the hell? It was like a friggin' banshee, like a cat was squished by a car or something. It's like, oh God,
here's how you watch that scene in the future, Johnny. What you do is you just imagine she's in mourning because George just quit.
Yeah.
No? Okay. Never mind. Just a thought.
And it's like what Ringo said, there's only two people playing instruments and one people singing. It is the sound of the 1969, and it is great.
But you know what? You know what I enjoyed? I really enjoyed this part. Is when Billy Preston, like the look on his face just said it all. He was like in amazement when he came in for the first time to do this. Actually, he was his grin was like from ear to ear, and he was really getting into it. I really
Billy
enjoyed
Preston,
that part.
yeah.
Watching him getting into that stuff, right? And
yeah, he's great.
Well, I love the way he just was able to groove musically with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right in.
Perfect.
Everybody wanted Preston on their albums.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was in demand. And the connection was that, of course, they met him when he was touring with Little Richard. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they had already established, and they were touring with Little Richard at first low on the bill, and that flipped. Am I right, Paulina?
Yeah.
Was that the tour where they they flipped him? It was for Little Richard.
I think it might have been for Roy Orbison.
Oh, what's it? Okay, all right, you may be right about that.
Dang,
Yeah,
Paulina.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, but they met them during that Little Richard tour, met him during that Little Richard tour, and they just always stayed connected, especially him and George.
And
But
you
they
may
all
not
loved
know,
him.
Yeah.
and you may not know this, but one of the musicians that was playing for Little Richard on that tour is a guy named Johnny Nichols. And Johnny Nichols would also be a founding member of the LA band Love. And
Oh,
and so he says that he remembers going out to England with Little Richard on this tour, and he saw like these four little British English guys, like, you know, following Little Richard around, and he was like, oh my God, who are these annoying little boys, like, you know, following Little Richard and gushing over him. And then about like a year later, he sees those little boys performing at the Hollywood Bowl. It's like, holy shit, they made it big.
well, years later, Little Richard said, "I taught Paul McCartney everything he knows." And right after that, Paul did an interview, and he said, "You're absolutely right, Little Richard. You did, you know," or something to that effect. I always love that. Yeah.
Well, you know, that kind of reminds me of one of my favorite stories about Ike Turner and Jimi Hendrix. Ike Turner was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked him, "We understand you fired Jimi Hendrix. Why did you fire Jimi Hendrix?" And I goes, "Well, you know, he had all those pedals. He had the wah pedal, and he had the fuzz pedal, and he had this pedal and that pedal. He spent more time messing with them pedals than he spent playing, so I fired him." Then later on in the interview, he goes, when I started hearing about this, Jimi Hendrix rock god, I didn't know it was the same Jimi Hendrix. You know, that circulates on YouTube. I mean, type it in. You know, Ike Turner talking about firing Jimi Hendrix. There's some real funny stuff like that out there. Anyway, so so here we are. We've got all kinds of people in the chat throwing some great comments out, and I really appreciate that all the time. We have my good friend here, Dusty Spins. Now, I want to let everybody know that Dusty Spins has a YouTube show called Dusty Spins, and he really does a good job. Now, Dusty, you are a huge Beatles fan, aren't you?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Dusty Spins is a huge Beatles fan. And if you would like, although it won't be on for a whole lot longer, we try to limit the show to an hour, but jump on and talk some Beatles with us, Dusty. You're more than welcome to.
Oh yeah.
I just put a link up.
Oh,
I've
Royce.
seen that. Royce is fun. Oh, Angela saw that. That's great.
But I would like to add that,
hey, buddy, Jeff.
Going back to the whole discussion, is that them stop touring, in a way was a good blessing, because though we were not going to see them perform again, some of the stuff that they made when they stopped touring just got bigger and better and musically just expanded. Right. It's like, you know, they're pulling out all the new colors out of the crayon box and just giving us like a lot of these cool new things that, as we were seeing from the Revolver sessions, like, you know, the stuff that they came up with in Sgt. Pepper and, you know, like the White Album was like just totally fantastic, as well as Magical Mystery Tour. It's like, you know, I think the stop touring thing was like a blessing in them, because then they got to create and let their imaginations run wild.
Well, I think they were just, again, the hardest working band in history. And somehow with all that touring, they managed to create rock and pop's first true album, Rubber Soul. Then the amazing things that they went on to further accomplish in Revolver. And the fact that you listed, I know that one of them was not Nowhere Man, from Revolver, that they did live. I forget which one, but they
Right,
couldn't do
right, Chris.
this. Yeah, as Paulina said, they couldn't do this live, but they had experienced its creation, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's another reason, is because they immediately followed it up with what? Sergeant Pepper, spending 5 months, almost half a year. Now, these days, that's no time at all. All right. But in those days, and how expensive studio time was, the amount of money that went into the cover, the
Yeah.
amount of effort, them saying we need a 90-piece orchestra for a day in the life. And George Martin goes, "Are you crazy? Do you know how much that would cost?" And Ringo going, "We'll just bring in 45 pieces and we'll tape them twice." Do you know what? That's what they did, Royce.
Did they really?
Yes. All right. That's what they did. So from the stirrings of the great Beatles stuff and again, Rubber Soul's my favorite Beatle album. And Revolver's my number 2. All right. But the stirrings of those albums are what drove, I think, a stake into the heart of touring forever, because not only were they physically tired, first it was John, then it was George right behind him, then Ringo started muttering, and pretty soon there was a bit of dissension there in the last months because Paul was the one kept saying, "Come on, lads, chins up." Like he did every single time. He'd give him a call. "Hey, lads, it's time to record in the studio." Thank God for Paul McCartney. Otherwise, I think the end of that band with John, it was just as great a composer, don't get me wrong, and just as great a singer. But if there had been no Paul McCartney in the Beatles, I think John just would have kind of lost interest, He already did early,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is said that, and I toyed with this idea that if it weren't for Paul pushing everybody, the Beatles would have basically ended after Revolver, after that concert. And I
think so, yeah.
And so I feel like, if Paul wasn't pushing everybody, and I think Paul would have been the first one to actually have a solo career. And I think his would have been really, really good, because I think he knew that a lot of these musicians that he was working with, that he was friends with, because a lot of people that he knew that are great session musicians around that time will go on to become big in their own right. Like Nicky Hopkins, he was friends with John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page, and all these kind of people. He would have gotten those people together and would have made like a solo album in '67 if he didn't push the Beatles.
Well, Paulina, I remember there were articles on there that were always hinting that Paul was going to go solo when I was a teenager. So there was always that nibble from the press, at least.
Yeah. And but it was Paul that still believed in the power of the Beatles, the power of the brand that is the Beatles. That like no, I don't want to do a solo thing. I'm still in love with being a Beatle. I'm still in love with the idea of making music with John, George, and Ringo.
Yeah, that's great. That's great,
I
Paulina.
need to get them back into the studio, and we need to start making like the next thing, and so they started with Field going to Sgt. Pepper.
I think they just obviously they burnt themselves out. They should have slowed down a little bit, half as many concert dates and things like that. I mean, something just to give themselves a little bit of a break, in there.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if sometimes I think about this, if the all four were still alive and if they were still touring, how much would they still have that magic and in these concerts, doing these concerts, or would people actually, a lot of people still go and see them, or would they kind of fizzle?
Well, people would go and see them. All right. There's no doubt about that.
Them maybe, right?
Yeah, that'd be the first $1 trillion tour. If that could ever happen. Now, would the Beatle magic be there? I don't think so. I have this theory. There's this thing about certain groups that are certain individuals, and you can have nobody else in that band. All right. So the Beatles is John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Right.
All right.
Right.
I don't give a damn who was in the band before. It was the four Mop Tops. Led Zeppelin is Robert, Jimmy, John, and JPG or Jay Jones.
Yeah, absolutely.
And nobody else is in that band. I'm sorry. Nobody is allowed. Boom. No matter how great they were with John's son. And I love that concert, but they weren't Led Zeppelin. That was the time they should have billed themselves as unleaded. Boy, that would have been perfect. Right.
That would have been perfect, yeah.
That's what Page and Plant billed themselves the first time they got together. Remember?
Okay.
It was called Unleaded. Yeah. No John Paul Jones. He was never called. He always resented that. And then also,
he did. I heard him say that at an awards show one time.
Right. And always Pink Floyd.
My phone number. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, Pink Floyd for me is the fly in the ointment because there's Sid Barrett. What to do with Sid? But the true Pink Floyd, as it matured to its full manifestation, is Gilmore, right? Rogers, and that drummer fella. Okay? All right. So there's nobody that can fit in there. And other bands, trade members like their baseball cards.
Right.
I'll take two foreigners and give you a Toto.
I mean, I told you a while back that little local Indian casino here, not little casino, big casino, that Three Dog Night was coming, and the first thing you said was, "Are there any original members?"
This is kind of a good segue to, like I was typing in the chat there earlier before we went on stream about. It's a good segue from when Michael was mentioning Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, because I really wanted to touch on the Pink Floyd thing and the Stones thing, but I didn't want to take it away from the Beatles, basically the Beatles, what we're supposed to be talking about. So I didn't know whether, but it's kind of a good segue to that, because I had I was chopping at the bit with these other two.
No, I know. Right before the show started, I saw you mention them both in the chat.
Yeah. Right. So I wanted to ask Michael something that's kind of was important.
Go ahead. Anyway. Go ahead. Ask you. We get into a little free for all here, as the show progresses.
Well, first of all, when as far as Roger Waters doing his thing, I listened to a few tracks like Time and Money and all that, and Michael touched on a few things on his show where he went and then and I felt that way when he started playing Time, right? It was like, okay, where's the guitar riffs and where's the clock and the heartbeat and stuff like that type thing, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking, it kind of reminded me of Leonard Cohen almost type feel when he I don't know, in my opinion anyways, right? The way he was saying the lyrics and all that, it was like, okay, put a bit of a oomph in it a little bit,
right?
But and also, so I'm thinking, I don't know, like. It's hard. It was hard to. I mean, of course, he's brilliant, but it was kind of hard to get used to that kind of style, especially when you've heard the Pink Floyd album, "Dark Side of the Moon," and then that comes in, and it's like, I don't know.
It's like, what's the point? I mean,
Well, Johnny, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Here's the problem with Roger Waters. I love the artist Roger Waters. Not crazy about the man, but I love him as an artist. He still has it. The new lyrics he's written for Time fit very well and are appropriate. All right. But here is his whole problem in a nutshell. He doesn't work with real peers. All right. He doesn't work with musicians and those musicians are great musicians in the industry right now. They're good musicians. But see, Gilmour wasn't just a good musician. He was one of the best guitarists in rock. Okay. Wright wasn't just a keyboardist. Take a look at what he wrote. The man could sing a damn great song. Echoes, my favorite of all Pink Floyd songs. All right. See, Roger Waters was working with fellow giants. Then he got a big head because he became the only lyricist. And so he started directing Pink Floyd albums and still put out great crap, man. I mean, good stuff, I should say. And I'm a fan of that. But then he fired Richard Wright, the asshole. All right. How can you fire an equal partner, you dumb shit? All right. Okay. So he's surrounded by yes people. Right. Do you know where the idea of this album came from? And I didn't cover this in my video. The idea of this album came from when he did the Shutdown sessions, and they did one Pink Floyd song or two in that, I forget how many, in the same freaking vein that you're hearing right now. And he muttered to himself with the person that was one of the musicians who is now the producer of this new piece of crap, released in a year that was totally inappropriate. All right. And so he muttered to himself, and all he said was, you know, it'd be kind of fun to do this kind of approach on Dark Side of the Moon. Now, here's the bugaboo. I had to access this through Apple iTunes, and I turned it on, and I clicked the lyrics like I always do. I already said that in my video. And you look up at the songwriting credits. All it says is lyrics, Roger Waters. Now, here's the thing. There's three songs, 4 songs that he has no credit on the album that he claims he wrote all by himself. God, what an ego.
Do you think that was trying to poke your finger in the eye of Gilmour though?
By kind releasing it this year?
Yeah. Like the way he changed the style, right? Here,
all right. You know? Yeah, I've already covered this. Okay, first of all, he's pissed that he's not included on the Pink Floyd website. Right. You know, because he's not a member of Pink Floyd, and he tried to stop them from using the name Pink Floyd. You wonder why you're not on the Pink Floyd website and why David Gilmour's wife is. See, this man, you can't tell this man no. That's why I'm not a fan of the man. But is he talented? Yes, he is. And he's writing his level in lyrics so far on this album, but it's an inappropriate album. I don't like the approach. And where are the freaking dynamics on this album? Everything lies within a bandwidth this narrow. Yet we get time, and I'm talking about time here. We listen to time on the Pink Floyd album, and what do we get? We get a menagerie of clocks ticking all over the place. You feel like you're in a giant room with walls crammed with clocks, and then the tick, 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 tick. That would become a centralized theme. Everything rises to a majesty, and this guy dribbles along. All right, and where is the guitar solo? That was written into this song. Written into this song. So you're ignoring entire chunks of the nature of this song. Now, to you people out there are going to go, hey man, he wrote the lyrics on this album. He wrote some of the things that he can do whatever he wants. Really? He can? What? Let's go to France. All right, let's meet up in that grand old museum, the Louvre, and let's paint a mustache on the Mona Lisa. All right? Quit messing with what you're not supposed to be messing with, you idiots.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't mess with a masterpiece like that.
Like,
No.
I wanted to give an analogy. It's kind of like you're making this. I know it's kind of weird analogy, but you're making this pot of soup, and you're known for this great pot of soup with the ingredients in it, right? And then all of a sudden, you get the same people coming over with this. They're coming over for the soup because it's great because of the ingredients that are in it. And then all of a sudden, you take these ingredients out, and then the soup becomes blah, right? It's kind of like Rogers with his what he's doing. It's kind of like he took the ingredients out, like the guitar riff, stuff like that, and even the clock and the clock and the heartbeat, and it's kind of like you can't even really. It's not even there, I don't think. But it's kind of like taking those ingredients out, right?
Yeah, I do want to make one correction on my video, by the way. Here is a correction. I was wrong. I actually wasn't wrong, but I thought I had said it differently. When I said that the lyrics, he's talking about time being in the rocks under the water, in the books of all humanity, all of that. He said, he actually concludes that with the thing, thus is born reason. Listen to your own advice, Roger Waters. Reason with people. Right. Use reasoning when you attack a project like this.
Now,
don't listen to the clowns that you've paid for to live around you.
Right.
Now I've got to
argue with David, and make something.
Gary, I agree with Michael too. Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
When I watch
Thank
Michael,
you, Gary.
I'm waiting for Michael to just jump out of my screen.
Listen, man. Okay, let me explain why I get so hot and bothered. Because if you're a new viewer out there, this is my art. I'm a singer-songwriter. I learned to record on the McCartney album because that was a 4-track album, and I dissected. This is my life, but it's also our generation's life. Right. This is some of the great stuff that we did do despite all our foolishness, and it should be protected.
That's why
right. And you know what?
I watch him because he's compassionate. He's compassionate about the music and everything. He's so interesting and mesmerizing to listen to. But I wanted to ask him an important question. It was about the Stones, and it's just an important question for me. And I'm kind of like, I don't want buyer's remorse with this because I've been thinking about it. You know how they came up with the diamond with the dagger, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I ordered the album, and I'm waiting for it, but I didn't take the one with the dagger and the heart. I took the one which it's their trademark, the hand underneath, but it was the lips and the tongues, and they had little eyes on the cover with diamonds in it. It looked like.
Oh wow! I wasn't aware of that cover.
It's blue vinyl.
That's not.
Yes, I was. Okay, I have seen that.
And I was just wondering whether I should have or not, because it's blue vinyl. But the reason why I like that cover is because it's, like I said, it's their trademark with the lips and all that, right? And,
right.
And that's why I liked that one. But I was thinking about it and kept on thinking about it. And thinking, and it's a blue vinyl, but it was a limited edition. They said.
Right.
Okay,
to me, between the two covers, the real art is in the one with the heart and the dagger. And I'll tell you why. You got a male hand holding the dagger. The heart is shattering. Underneath, ready to hold, is a feminine hand. So you've got a lot of yin and yang artwork and intent in that. The diamonds shatter out. Now, if you watch that album cover on Apple iTunes, it moves. I used a portion of that in my video, right? It moves. And you see how those pieces, wow. To me, that's as good a rock cover as any classic rock cover ever. All right, the lips and everything, it looks cool. I agree with you, Johnny, but it's so corporate to me a little bit. You know, because that is a kind of a they became a corporation with those lips, honey.
Well,
They became a corporation.
That's why I was like torn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this or that. And this is why I chose the lip thing, because, like I said, it's their trademark.
Right, right.
And I thought, like, okay, this is their trademark and everything. So, but as I was thinking about it, I thought, okay, geez, should I have taken the one, the other one?
Right, right.
Well, that's always tough when they never used to offer 2 or 3 alternative copies of the cover to begin with.
Yeah,
something that came out later.
We have gotten some really good album covers this year. 72 Seasons by Metallica, Mirror to the Sky by Yes, and I'm going to be doing a whole thing on that because, oh boy, secret.
Hey,
You'll have to subscribe to my channel to find out.
I want to ask everyone to hit the like button, smash the like button, the thumbs up button.
Oh yeah, him too.
It lets the algorithm know that people are watching the show. It gives us an opportunity to be recommended when people are looking for shows. So anyway, that I would appreciate if everybody would hit that button. And also, if you're not a subscriber, you're always welcome to come. Please don't go away if you're not a subscriber. But I would appreciate it if you did hit the subscribe button, because number one, it doesn't cost a damn penny. And number two, it also helps to grow the show. So anyway, that's my little thing. I'm done. Thank you.
I kind of feel better for Michael's input about this. It's kind of, because I'm still thinking, okay, should I?
Well, you know what? I just went through this. I just went through the same thing. I was looking at Hackney Diamonds, and they were showing, I think it was Amazon, and there was different covers to choose from, and I'm like, what the hell? I've never been faced with that before. Now, I will say, we just did a show on Sticky Fingers, and I was telling this to Michael. I don't know if I had the pictures to show you, but there was an alternative cover in Russia, and it was a female wearing jeans, not a male wearing jeans, and there was also a belt buckle with a hammer and sickle on it. And then there was a alternate cover for Sticky Fingers done in oh man, where was it? Was it not Peru, but no, it was Franco's Spain. Franco was a fascist, and it was in Spain, and so they did a cover, and it was like a can of soup or something, with all these bloody fingers sticking up, and that was their alternate cover.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I would like to kind of have those. Go ahead.
I'm surprised that because I'm listening to people on streams, and I'm surprised that it seems to me a lot of people are just going, well, this pre-release is okay.
I'm surprised
it's
too,
all
Michael.
right.
I think
it's top notch. I don't think it's the greatest thing they've ever done, but it's good.
No, it's top notch. If that's any indication what the rest of the album is going to be like, I'm going to say it right here. I think it'll go to number one. The album will.
And the fact that they just released, well, now it's been almost 2 years, Living in a Ghost Town, which I consider a fantastic track. And if that's connected, because we've talked about, is that recording connected to these recordings? Obviously, these recordings started November, December of last year. And of course, Living in a Ghost Town came out even before that. But Living in a Ghost Town was supposed to be connected to an album. So some of these recordings started in November, including backing tracks already done, and then the band started up in November and released this. Because if that's true, that could mean really good things for this album, because both of these tracks are great.
Yeah. I've got a comment up here by Eddie's Physical Media, and I want to highly recommend that everybody go check Eddie out.
Yes.
I love Eddie's show. He plays the best music. A lot of it's stuff I hadn't heard before, but every bit of it I like. So thank you, Eddie, and thanks for smashing the thumbs up button too. That's appreciated as well. But Eddie has a fun show. I enjoy going there. So anyway, now back to Hackney Diamonds now. Of course, Charlie Watts is on 2 songs that were made prior to his death. So they've been working on that for a while.
And
then
I
we have-
heard initially that, good Lord, I'm having a brain freeze. Bass player for the Stones, the original.
Wyman, Bill Wyman.
Bill Wyman.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bill Wyman was on both of those tracks. Now I'm hearing he's only on one. And
Well,
then
wait a
I
second,
heard
I've got-
Ringo was on a track with Paul, but now I'm not hearing he's on the album at all.
Yeah, and I haven't heard that either, but I did hear that once before though.
Yeah,
You know,
I
you've
heard
got
that too. Yeah.
Elton John playing piano on track 2. You've
Right.
got Paul McCartney on bass on Bite My Head Off track 4. You've got Charlie Watts on drums on track 7 and 8, Mess It Up and Live by the Sword. I remember a friend of mine said to me one day, he goes, hey, did you hear that porn star Johnny Holmes died? And I go, yeah, well, you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Oh,
So
man,
anyway,
I could see that
also
one
on-
coming. Woo!
Also on track 8, in addition to Charlie Watts, you've got Bill Wyman bass and Elton John on piano. And then on track 11, you have none other than Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga singing, Stevie Wonder on keyboards.
Correction, Royce. That's Lady Gagged Me with a Spoon singing. God, I hate that woman.
Do you?
Don't like her? No, you know, I don't, polka. Yeah, God.
You know, some people
Ugh.
some people are probably out there, some criticizing the album, saying, "Oh, it's not." But to me, I look at it as these guys are in their late 70s. They've been around for like
80s.
decades, right? You gotta give them that much credit. It's like, and Mick Jagger is still running, could run around the stage and everything else, and so you got to give them that credit. They're like Mick Jagger's 80.
Yeah,
right.
And Richards is like 79, and
no, you have to give them all the credit in the world. I mean, it wasn't too long ago people were talking about. Somebody said something about Keith Richards. His parts were being played, and he wasn't even playing. And somebody else said something about some female singer that was really accentuating Mick Jagger's lyrics because like he needed the help. But I'm not seeing
true.
that. Well,
all true, by the way. All true. Hey, listen, man, I love the Stones. They're in my pantheon of all great rock
I
gods.
know they are.
All right?
I know they are.
But man, I have seen videos, and when he isn't being played over, there is some God blessed bad, sloppy guitar playing coming from both guitarists. All right,
Michael, you gotta read this comment from Gary Spring. Can you see it? I knew you'd. I knew you'd like that for some strange reason.
Oh boy, I don't know. But here's the thing: despite that, I wouldn't pay to go see the Stones anymore. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. Not even for it's not worth the harassment of even showing up there. But anyway, and plus, to me, no, they're not at their sharpest. But in the studio, when he's got a chance to play it right, and he has to stay. Man, so far what I'm hearing is good. So give them their due when it's earned, and demand more and better when it's not. They need to tighten up their live show. Sorry.
Well, and I won't argue with that at all. Now, Betty and I had tickets to see the No Filters tour, and then COVID hit, and we had a hard time getting our money back, and we'd booked rooms. We had a flight planned. It's San Diego. It's like a 5.5, 6 hour drive. We were going to fly down, get a hotel room and things like that. But anyway, so.
Sounds like you guys ran into a lot of filters there, Royce.
Yes. We did. We had a hell of a time with Ticketmaster. We kept calling up. We said, we want our money back. And they'd say, well, it wasn't, no, you don't understand. It wasn't canceled. It was just postponed. You only get your money back if it's canceled. So every few weeks I'd call them every month or so. And finally they answered one day and they go, well, there was a window of time and you missed it. We had a little window of time. We sent you an email. I go, no, you did not. And so finally I had to turn them over to my wife. and they sent the money back that very day into our card.
No, I can't see any group nowadays that's going to prolong their life as a group than the Rolling Stones. I can't see them surpassing any group surpassing the Rolling Stones. For Christ's sake, they even surpassed the Beatles when you think of it.
Oh,
Because
by
the
far,
Beatles,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
so, and Mick Jagger, didn't he have an operation or something like that? And after the operation, he took a bit of relaxation period, but he was back on stage jumping around, for Christ's sake.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I can't. They're like, for the ones that are criticizing, the younger ones that are criticizing. Okay, wait till you're 80 years old or 79 and go on stage and do what they're doing and see what. Then come and see me.
My stance has always been, if you've got something new to say and you can pull it off, keep touring until you're 100.
Yeah.
Right.
But if either of those suffer, consider retirement. And thank you for showing up.
Right.
Right.
Again, I love what Gary Spring said. Keith Richards is the living dead.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
I
God.
really
There are
say,
so many jokes about stuff like that.
But I agree with Michael with saying about going to doing on stage and in the studio. I think you're right there. That I think they now, being in the studio is way different than going on tour and going on stage and all that stuff like that, right? They're more relaxed in the studio, so all their creativity can come out.
Well, Johnny, what I always get is, but it's the last time I'll ever be able to see them. And what the hell is that? That's a death watch. What are you, roaming around the courts?
No,
or the body waiting?
Michael, right before Hackney Diamonds, I was just telling people that there's no way I'd go see the Rolling Stones again. I mean, I saw them in '72 at the Long Beach Arena, when I was 19 years old, the Exile on Main Street tour. I saw them again, I think it was '99 in Portland, Oregon, the Bridges to Babylon tour.
And, you're making me jealous. Stop it.
And then I did want to see them this last one, the No Filters, because I didn't know how deteriorating they were getting. But with this new album, I'm kind of excited. Now, granted, that's completely different than a live performance, as we all know. You can they've been spending a couple of years getting this together based on what they saved from Charlie Watts, songs from him. So maybe they've been working on it for years, and it's taken every bit of that time to get it right. I don't know, because they can remake those tracks time and time again until they're finally good.
They were one of the bands that I criticized as to why, but they fixed that in a flash because they got brand new products. So shut up, Michael, and let's hear it.
With that praising the Stones and all that for their accomplishments and being their age and everything, you're right. I wouldn't go see the Stones now. I wouldn't pay that kind of money. But you know what?
No,
a lot of people will, and they'll still fill those venues.
They will still fill those for nostalgia's sake. They will definitely still fill the venues.
I was about to say that for nostalgia. That's why they're gonna go, right?
Yeah. Well, I want to remind everybody that next Sunday I'm going to be.
They'll be showing up at Kiss's concerts when Kiss walks out in little walkers. No, seriously.
No, the Kiss Army will be there.
Yeah, it's to see the brand. And the Rolling Stones, again, they're in my Mount Rock Olympus of the top 13 bands. But the Rolling Stones have become like Kiss. They're a corporation. It's the licking tongue that everybody wants to see. And I was there before Mick, or I was there before whoever died, Hey,
well, I got to say this right now. Okay, next Sunday, I'm going to be at Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin evening. So we won't have a show next Sunday. I bought these tickets a couple of months back. One of my favorite smaller venues, Vienna Rolos Amphitheater. There are no bad seats.
Sounds fun.
So I'm really, really looking forward to it. Got some good seats. fairly cheap actually. But anyway, so I'm trying to figure out when I want to. Maybe it'll be like a Saturday evening or something. I've got to think about it for a couple of days. And we'll do a show on Saturday because I don't want to miss one. You know, I love doing these live podcasts. And anyway, but having said that, we have run out of time, folks. And I want to thank my co-hosts. Go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead.
No, I'm just creating the sound effect that Roger Waters put on his album. Tick 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 tick. Where's my alarm clock? It's time to go.
So the Beach Boys were around longer. Okay, interesting. It's hard to remember that, but anyway, so I want to thank all my co-hosts. You know, Michael, Johnny, Paulina,
love it, Dan.
And I want to thank. Let's see, the Stones discovered the Fountain of Youth.
No, Utes.
The Fountain of Youth years ago. Okay. So I want to thank everybody in the chat. Man, I really enjoy this chat. I'm glad when I finally get a chance to settle down from my initial conversation and work with the chat and do it, Royce. Do it. Okay, Caitlin.
Hey, listen, I want to tell all of you guys I had fun tonight. Sorry, I think we stepped on Paulina. She wanted to make a statement when we were talking about some stuff, and it kind of got smashed. I'm sorry about that, Paulina.
Paulina, if you want to make that statement now, go ahead.
I already made it in the comment section that
okay.
Around longer than Rolling Stones, and having said that, Chicago has had a longer active career than the Rolling Stones and the Beach Boys. So
yeah, that's pretty amazing. I hadn't even thought about that. But anyway, folks, so I want to thank everybody for watching. Really appreciate you all being here. Really appreciate my co-host. And that's what's going on in Royce's World today. And we will see you next week, probably on Saturday evening. All right. Good night, everybody.
Okay.